Alone.
Alone.
Alone. Alone.
Alone.
I gotta get out of here!
Hello my loves, and welcome back to this channel. Today we are talking about loneliness. Loneliness is an expression that every single human being feels on Earth at some time or another. Many animals feel it as well. And there are many reasons for loneliness. There are many reasons why people feel it. There are a bunch of stats out there right now that we are in a loneliness epidemic. They literally call it that. And there's been surveys that about half, and on some studies I saw even 60% of Americans feel some level of loneliness. And there was different ratings there, whether it's like you feel it sometimes or all the time. But that's a lot of people. That's the majority, if it's truly 60%. And this makes a lot of sense when we think about things like people working a lot and not having the time or the energy to really spend time doing leisurely things, or not having enough money to do leisurely things. People moving to faraway places and different cities for job opportunities and then losing the current communities that they have. It being difficult to make friends the older you get. There's also tons of research out there about how technology is ruining us in terms of socialization, and I do think there's a part of that, but I think that the story is much larger than that. But yeah, so many reasons for it, way more than I listed, but I'm not really interested in talking about those things because I think that there's already so many think pieces about why we're lonely and all the things that we can blame on it. But the fact is, the way that I see this is that this is the world that we live in right now. And absolutely, we need to be the change we wish to see in the world, and we need to keep advocating for the things that we want to see in our world. But while we're living here, I really believe that we need to try our best to thrive as best we can and make the best of the situations that we're in. So some of the sections that we're going to be running through, so you know what you're getting, is we're going to talk about what loneliness is trying to tell us. We're going to talk about the inherent interconnectedness between you and all other people on Earth and just the world in general. And we're going to talk through the ways that we can connect when we're feeling our most alone. So let's get into it. The first thing that I really want to break down is what it means when we're feeling lonely. Because I think that a lot of us have a tendency to think things like, oh, I'm feeling lonely, and just stop right there. But there's actually a much larger story if we dig a little bit deeper. So the first question that we really want to ask is, what is our loneliness really trying to tell us? The phrase, I'm lonely, can mean so many other things. So let's take a look at some of those. I'm lonely can also mean, I feel misunderstood. I wish I knew people with similar interests. I work a lot and don't have the time or energy for much more. I'm having a unique or challenging experience and don't know anybody who has been through this before. It's easier to stay home. And many, many more. The reason why it's important to dig a little deeper beyond the I'm lonely and see what else this feeling might be trying to tell us. Once you understand where the lonely feeling is actually coming from, it makes it a lot easier to know how you can meaningfully take action towards it. Because then at that point, it's not so abstract. If you just say, I'm lonely, and stop there, versus I feel more connected to people when we have shared interests. Those are two completely different things, where for the latter, you actually kind of have an idea of how you could solve for that. Now you have the information, I want to talk to people with similar interests. And that is way less abstract of a concept than just, I am lonely. Another note I'll add here is that the whole point of this exercise of digging a little bit deeper is never to minimize or disregard the feelings that you have. The lonely, isolated feelings you have are very real, but the point is to just add a little bit more context so that you can better understand what's going on in your brain and your heart, and then hopefully with that understanding you can give yourself some compassion and then take some action steps as to what you could do to feel a little more connected. You might feel like you are the most alone person on Earth right now, but Everything on Earth, every other person, every plant, every animal, everything that you can see and touch and taste and smell, all the senses, you are inherently interconnected with all of that. We breathe out carbon dioxide, the plants take those in, and then they convert it to oxygen that we can breathe in. There is a whole complex food chain of, one animal eats that animal, and that one eats that one, and that all works in this, beautiful way. All of humanity is connected. We all kind of originated from the same source. We have all evolved at the same rate. When people say things like, no one is free until everyone is free, that's all about interconnectedness. And when we think about the climate, that is a huge example of interconnectedness, because the way that we treat our environment is going to directly affect everyone. It's one of those things that none of us can escape, and it is going to come for us all, and already is. We can think about consumerism, we can think about how the things that we are purchasing day to day are made by people and affect people that very often they're coming from hundreds or thousands of miles away from us. But we are all interconnected in that exchange. I can only speak from a perspective of growing up in the States because that is my experience. But coming from a really individualistic culture, there creates this illusion of separateness. And within the illusion, we come to believe that we are just this individualized, self-sustaining person, and we romanticize ideas like being self-made. Even though in the reality of life, when people become really successful and thrive, they didn't do that 100% on their own. They had helpful teachers and mentors, financial support along the way. There was probably many different factors that helped them to be successful, and there were many people along the way that helped and encouraged them in different ways. And when we get caught up in the illusion of separateness, then we come to believe that our failings are really personal, and that if we're not succeeding, we're not successful, whatever, that it's our fault, it's some way that we're lacking, it's some way that we're not enough. But the illusion of separateness actually keeps us a little more stuck, because we're under that assumption that we have to be able to do everything on our own, and if we can't, then there's something wrong with us, and we're never going to make it. But the truth is, we are all so interconnected, and knowing that, I think, helps us to get to those places that we really want to get to and have the support that we really need. Even the whole concept of loneliness and the loneliness epidemic, I think that part of the reason that is happening is because a lot of people who feel lonely think that they need to deal with that in a really isolated way. Which is a little funny, right? Because one of the wonderful antidotes to loneliness is being in community and reaching out to people and connecting in different ways. And I think that in some ways, the whole self-healing, self-care culture has also perpetuated this idea a little bit. And I don't think it has been purposely to harm people, not at all, because I do think that there is a lot of value in being able to self-soothe and feel like you can really count on yourself. All of that is so important. But it only becomes a little problematic when you feel like that's the only way that you're allowed to cope with your life, and that you shouldn't reach out to other people, and you just should be able to figure this all out on your own. And even something like loneliness, that's something that you have to figure out on your own. But it's not. So yeah, I'm here to tell you it's not. Everybody feels it. And looking at these statistics, if up to 60% of people in this country alone are feeling loneliness, you can know that you are absolutely not alone, and that so many other people are feeling what you are feeling, and that it's completely normal, and nothing is wrong with you for feeling that. We are way more similar than we are different. Always. Just think about a human life in its most basic form. We are all born. We all die. For now. No, I'm just kidding. We all have challenges, we all experience loss, we all experience disappointment. So what are some ways that we can cope when we are feeling lonely, when we are feeling alone? First thing is to go back to what I was saying before, is to dig a little bit deeper, identify the core feeling. go beyond just the feeling I'm lonely and see what that's really trying to tell you. See if you can add some more context. Give yourself compassion, and then you can think more thought, like once you understand what's really going on here, you can give more thought to how you can meaningfully approach this and take some action steps. Another thing I highly recommend you do is make a list of some of the easiest and low stakes ways that you can connect. And obviously this is going to vary per individual, but you can connect with almost anything in life. I mean, when I walk out into nature, I feel a sense of connection. When I'm looking out at the trees and I'm smelling flowers and I'm feeling the breeze on my face, that reminds me of the interconnectedness of life and how I am a part of it all. And that's something that makes me feel pretty good when I can get outside and do that. And that's one of my really low stakes ways to connect. Another one is engaging with art or music. Art and music, in most cases, was made by a real person. And that person was in their own sort of state of flow and connection when they were making it. And then when you are relating to it, that is another form of connection. And then obviously a big way to connect is through other people. If you have people in your life that you can reach out to, that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Like that really is a blessing. If you have family or friends or teachers, mentors, people that you know care about you and would be there for you. I know it's really hard sometimes to reach out to other people because you might fear that you don't want to bother them, you don't want to burden them with your feelings, but trust me, the people that really care about you in your life want to be there for you, and they're going to appreciate you coming to them. And also, this becomes a really nice feedback loop as well, because when a person knows that you trust them enough to come to them, then they're also going to know that they can come to you. And that's a beautiful thing when we can do that for each other. Another low stakes way that you can connect is through digital spaces. And I know, we're always saying, it's the phones, it's the internet, we gotta blame that for all of our problems in life. And yes, the internet does have problems, and that is certainly true. But I think that if we are able to use the internet or use gaming or use our digital spaces in a way that is a bit more intentional, then I think that we can really meaningfully connect that way. So let me explain that a little further. If you're just mindlessly scrolling on TikTok, for instance, and that's kind of it, yeah, that feels pretty lonely because you're not really engaging with what you're seeing. But one way to meaningfully connect on TikTok, for instance, if you see a video you really like, leave a comment. Say something nice to the creator. Ask a question. Also, I'm sure some of you have noticed, in these comment sections, people often end up having discussions. So you can read through some of those. You can respond if you want to. And when you do it like that, it makes it a more engaging experience. Another way to add some connection into your consumption habits is to share those things. If you see a video on TikTok and it makes you think of somebody that you know, or you think, oh, this person I know would probably gain some value from this, send it to them and say hey, what do you think about this? Or hey, this made me think of you. And then that can facilitate a discussion as well. In my own life, I've definitely had this experience with music. Some really close friends that I currently have, our initial bonding was about music. We realized that we had similar tastes, and then that led to sending each other albums, and then eventually talking about those albums, talking about our favorite songs, and then eventually even going to shows together of that music that we like. And that was something that kind of did start in many ways as a digital connection. It was just sending each other things that we thought each other would like, and then it grew into something more. So I think that it can be really limiting when people talk about the internet as a way where it's just void of connection, because that's just not true. We just need to learn how to use it in a way that can be connective, because it can be really isolating, of course, but there are ways to connect there. And I think that we're creative enough to figure out the ways that we can do that. And definitely another way to connect on digital spaces is to make your own stuff. Obviously, you don't have to make your own stuff. I think that we're all called to do different things, but if you do feel like you do want to add to a conversation that's happening online, and you do have some ideas, I highly encourage you to do it. I mean, it does feel scary and vulnerable when you're starting out, as I'm feeling right now, but it's definitely really worth it. And beyond those really low stakes ways to connect, also develop your lists of like medium stakes and high stakes ways to connect. And those are the things that maybe you're kind of scared to do, but you know would be ultimately really good for you, or could be really good for you. Maybe you want to join a group or a club, or you want to try a new activity, you want to join a sports team. It can be anything. It could also just be a curiosity to go to a certain place. Like maybe you know of a place that does open mics, and you're curious to check that out. So depending on like where that is on the list, you know, that might be your medium stakes, that might be your high stakes. Doesn't matter, it could be anything. The point is that you're gonna decide for yourself when you're feeling that loneliness, you're going to have those low stakes ways that can help you at least initially get out of the funk a little bit. And then you can work yourself up to those ways that are a little bit scarier, but they increase in the levels of connectiveness. Another huge piece of advice that I would give in this realm as well is to give the things that you want to receive. Let me explain. So there's actually a lot of studies on this, on how when we give things to other people, that actually makes us feel really good as well. It feels good to give people things. And I think that when we are in feelings of loneliness and difficult feelings in general, I would say, it's very easy to get so in our own heads and think about what we need in that moment. Like, oh, like I need connection, I need company, I need this, I need that. And that's totally normal to feel. But you can flip this and think about, okay, these are the things I want right now, so how can I actually give that to somebody else? And the really wonderful and crazy thing about how life works is that you will find that when you start getting in the habit of giving a lot, you start receiving a lot more too. And let me just be clear, we're not only giving just to get. We're giving because it feels good and because we want to. So some examples of what this can look like. You really want to be invited to a party. Have a party. Plan one. You want somebody to tell you that they appreciate you. You gotta find the people in your life that you really appreciate and tell them that you appreciate them. There's a specific person that you'd really like to hear from, or you really want to hang out with them. Reach out to them. You don't have to wait for them to reach out to you. And here's the thing about connections and everything, it's all so kind of random at the end of the day. We don't really know which connections are going to survive the test of time and which ones aren't. I've had some really close friends in my life in the past that I swore we would be friends forever, and a lot of those friendships didn't last. Some of them, you know, are still really going strong, and that's awesome, but many of them didn't. And I think knowing about the seasonality of relationships is also really helpful. Knowing that some relationships in our life really are only meant to last a certain length of time, and that doesn't make them more or less meaningful because they're shorter or longer. It just means that you guys happen to be in similar seasons where your paths crossed and you gave each other what you needed to give each other in that time, and then your ships passed. And other times our ships really are speeding alongside each other for a very, very long time, and sometimes forever. But very often there is a seasonality to these things, and it's okay, and that's just a part of life. Another kind of connection tool you can use is something called Tonglen Meditation. So I learned about this from Pema Chodron. I read a couple of her books over the years, who is an American Tibetan Buddhist. In Tonglen practice, we visualize taking in the pain of others with every in-breath and sending out whatever will benefit them in the out-breath. It's about sending and receiving. The point of this type of meditation is to turn your pain into compassion. So one of the really cool things about this practice is it acknowledges the interconnectedness of just humanity, but also it helps you to not feel so alone in what you're experiencing. So what you're supposed to do in the meditation is, in the in-breath, to breathe in just all the darkness, all the pain, all the suffering. And then on the out-breath, to breathe out relief, lightness, I took this from one of these blogs that she wrote. Traditionally, you begin doing Tonglen for someone you care about and wish to help. However, if you are stuck, you can do the practice for the pain you are feeling yourself, and simultaneously for all those who feel the same kind of suffering. Make it bigger than just one person. You can do Tonglen for people you consider to be your enemies, those who hurt you or others. Do Tonglen for them, thinking of them as having the same confusion and stuckness as your friend or yourself. Breathe in the pain and send them relief. Because in this world, even when we feel most alone than we've ever felt in our entire lives, we're not. And we can rest assured that with billions of people on this planet, whatever we're feeling right now is currently being felt by so many other people and has been felt by even a greater number of people. It's about that acknowledgement that we're all connected and that we are all feeling these things, and that we can do a practice of compassion in order to mutate our pain into relief for others. And somebody like Pema would suggest that you start small. Think about breathing in all of that like pain and intensity and then sending out that relief to everybody that needs it just as much as you do. And of course, it's not like I'm saying that this is a substitute for being involved in your community. No, but the point is just to connect with the reality that we're all really connected and to just be more mindful beings in that way. And my last tip would be to be gentle on yourself. Recognize that what you're experiencing is completely normal and it has been felt by so many other people, is currently being felt by so many people, and that you are not alone in your aloneness, and that there are ways to connect, and that if you think about all the people who have overcome what you're currently feeling, that means that you can too. And that also means that you can eventually be a person to help others to overcome this. And yeah, it's just a beautiful chain reaction in that way. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video or you think that more people should see it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm planning on making more videos like this in the future. Would also like to hear any feedback if you have any. It's really fun for me to read through comments. Yeah, thanks so much. I'll see you next time. One more thing, I forgot to record this, so now I'm back. But I also write a newsletter, and that always comes out along with the videos, and so if you would like to subscribe to that as well and support me through there, I post on Substack as well as Medium, so you can follow those links down below. Thanks for being here. Bye. I was paranoid I'm not recording. No, I am. Okay, great.